you need to kind of like turn around, find somebody, tell them the animal that you are most afraid of. And I will start. I'm afraid of worms. Go ahead.
Hello, thank you Creative Mornings for having me, and Erica and Matt for opening your space. I am honored and slightly confused about why you asked me to speak, but yeah, so the theme is honesty, and I'm going to start by being really real and honest and saying that this is absolutely terrifying, and I couldn't even give a speech in college without running out of the room. So, this is my first honest. I have written every word I'm going to say on these papers. Here I am because I am obsessed with this city. I've been here for 5 years. I'm about to move. I might cry. But even though this is terrifying, I really love supporting you guys, everything that's going on here, Erica and Matt. So that's why I'm here. I don't know if I'm crying because I'm nervous or because I love you. Okay, so I'm Carrie Burch. I run Stitch Folks. Has anyone heard of Stitch Folks? Okay, cool. So I know what I'm dealing with. I'm a fiber artist. I have been told that I have the most millennial hipster job of all time. I cross stitch all day, every day. When I tell them I'm a fiber artist, they typically either say, "Oh, me too, my grandma taught me how to cross stitch," or they say, "That's cool, but how do you make money?" So I'm gonna try to address that today. Oh, and this is my office assistant, Howie. He's at home working hard right now. So I asked friends what they would want to know about me and my business and being a maker in Grand Rapids, and mostly people just wanted to know, like, how did you find what you wanted to do and actually make money with it? So I'm going to try to share my journey to that, because it wasn't like I magically knew and then here I am. It took a lot of weird twists and turns, which I think is typical. So I went to school out in LA, let me see, with a focus in sculpture and fine art photography. I had no clue how those two things went together, but I just knew what I loved. I loved being hands-on. I didn't want to be at a desk doing graphic design. It just felt like soul crushing. So I was like, I'm going to make it work doing what I love somehow. So my first series at the end of college was actually like purposefully dishonest. I was doing a lot of traveling for the first time in my life, and I would go to these like epic places like the Grand Canyon and Yosemite, and I would get there and it would look so much different than how I had seen it photographed. There were like barriers that you couldn't actually like look over the edge, and everything was like crushed down by tourists, and it really, really bothered me. And just the dishonesty in photography really bothered me. So to comment on that, I made my own landscape photography, and I started by taking pieces out of magazines, mountains, peaks, valleys, and just collaging them together. And they looked ridiculous in color. But then I would take them outside and I would prop them up with like rocks and sticks and like friends' fingers and photograph them in grainy black and white film. And so that's what they ended up looking like. And it was really funny because I tried to be like really clear in my description of what I was doing. And I even like, as I collaged them, I tried to make the light look like it was coming from two different directions. Or I'd put like a flowering bush on top of like an icy peak. So I thought like, this is pretty obvious. And here's some more of those. So very clearly like not real, at least I thought. But I put them up in my show, and I actually had people coming up to me and asking like, where did you go to take these? And I heard this girl actually telling her friend, she's a photographer, and she was like, we could all take epic photos if we could afford to travel to these places. And she had no idea that I took these photos out by the dumpster. Like, so it was weirdly like the most dishonest but fun night of my life, like slowly. And the theme is honesty. But yeah, just wanted to comment on that. Let me see. Yeah, so people looking at art. So I graduated, and I was surprised that there wasn't a sculpture photography job just waiting for me. It was crazy. So let me see. The education I had been given was pretty much completely focused on being gallery ready. I had very little practical knowledge of how to make money as an artist. The only example I had seen was a girl who I thought had sold out and made an Etsy shop. I feel really bad for judging her now. And to avoid like selling out and not being in a gallery and just feeling like I didn't want to pursue anything in the arts and fail, I just worked at a coffee shop for like 2 years. It was very robotic and sad, but I felt like, I don't want to fail, so I'm just not even going to try. So around 2013, obviously that wasn't sustainable, and I went to a craft store and I was like, I'm going to find something to make or I will die. If you're an artist, you understand how that feels. I walked around the craft store and I landed in the embroidery section, and all the like colorful floss was just like so exciting. And I just grabbed a bunch of stuff and threw it in my cart and went home, and I decided to make something for my husband and I's wedding, and it was really hideous. So this is what I made. I obviously like clearly had no sense of scale. Like his neon head is just all you can see. But my family and my friends were so supportive, and they were like, we would buy these, like you should. They were like, you should open a shop. And I was really excited by that because I knew I could create, and I felt like I was decent at a lot of things, but I didn't know how to actually make money with it. So I opened one, and this is an updated one I made years later after like the kinks had been worked out. With our little cat, R.I.P. Sushi. Tearjerker. But yeah. Let me see where I'm at. So I primarily sold a lot of custom projects like these at the beginning. I sold them for really cheap because I knew I needed a lot of practice. Opened an Etsy shop. It was a big day. Let me see. Some of the things I would do to build a viewership at the beginning was to offer like free projects to family and friends, people with like a big following, in exchange for them posting work. I did a lot of promotions, a lot of giveaways. I watched what other shops did that I really respected, and I would just like write down every single thing they did, and I would like go home and do my own version of it. So I saw like a following slowly grow from there, just like really hard pursuit of it. I couldn't just like let it happen. And to keep things interesting, I said yes to like basically every collaboration I was offered. Some would be like clothing companies would want me to just cross-stitch something on the shirt. There was like a painter who wanted her logo to be embroidered, just things like that. And it gave me like the creative outlet I needed while I was working at Starbucks. And eventually, I was able to realize that if I kept pursuing this as hard as I was, I could make as much stitching as I was at my coffee shop job. So I just decided to like quit the coffee shop and like full-time, 9 to 5, sit at my desk and like make myself make work and like promote, and it actually went somewhere. I I did a project for Chaco. Let me see. Let's go on to the next one. So this is just a rolling slide of what I did over the next 4 years. Sorry. I did something for Chaco, for Love Your Melon, an art blog I love called Artistic Moods. And I was found on Instagram by an HGTV producer eventually because I had hashtagged interior decor over and over and over again on everything. So that led to a tiny feature in Joanna Gaines' Magnolia Journal, which was really, really cool, and a spread in Midwest Living. And each of these were encouraging and provided a really nice boost in sales, but I felt like something was missing. The money was coming in, but I was struggling to grow and get to the next point. Kind of felt like I had plateaued. So let's talk about honesty here. I've entered the world of social media makers. They use social media as a main source for revenue, where many businesses are posting like wildly fake photoshopped images of their work with captions about how happy they are and how great business is going. And that's the advice I got from most business owners was like, just fake it. Like just say you're doing great, say you're making a ton of orders, and that's how you'll be successful. So the next 4 years of embroidery was a struggle with honesty for me. People don't really give away their business secrets. They don't talk about the tricks or the losses or even the slightly shady ways they get their customer base. And I'll be real and say I did kind of fall into that trap for a while because I thought that's what I needed to do to be successful. Instagram had become like my biggest asset and my biggest trap. It's really hard to be honest when you actually have a reminder on your phone that says like, post something cool at 9 o'clock. Like, usually kind of had to fake it out of like that stress of like, I need to make this requirement. And the unfortunate thing is I kind of lost the honesty in my work as well. I didn't really do a lot that was like conceptual or things that I really deeply cared about. I was seeking kind of that wow effect and nothing more. And suddenly what like at one point had been like a soul-soothing occupation kind of turned into a source of stress. And I actually shut down my online shop a few times just because I would dread another order coming in. So I need to remind myself that you can't please everyone, nor should you seek to, because then you won't please anyone, least of all yourself. It sometimes seems like there's a line between a person as a human and who they are as an artist, and I feel like that shouldn't be the case. I've seen people remove that line and be completely themselves, not concerned with followers or fans, and that's when their work moved to the next level. I actually worked for an interior designer who I was doing her social media and marketing for a bit, and any question she was asked about like trade secrets or where she got a product or anything, she had me tell them. And I was like, you can't give away all of your secrets. But it was beautiful because people loved her and they loved that and they loved following along, and really like it didn't hurt her business, it really, really helped it. And I could really stand to learn a lot from her honesty and her generosity in that. Yeah, and then in addition, I feel like if artists pretend everything's fine, they aren't supporting up-and-coming artists. They're alienating them and making them feel like they're never enough. And when you're real, people have that feeling of, oh, I'm not alone. You have the struggle too. And I want to bring that kind of encouragement to the world. I wanted to grow to be a person that I needed when I started my business. So curveball, November 8th, Donald Trump was elected. Kind of threw a wrench into where I was at the time. I felt all new emotions, and I didn't feel like I had any power or control over anything. The only thing I felt control over was I can make art. I can express myself through this. So I did end up making art, but I first wanted to share a few of the people that really inspired me during that time. So the first one I loved was Subway Therapy by Matthew Chavez. The day after the inauguration, he brought all these Post-it notes to the New York subway, and he let people write whatever they wanted and express themselves. Just things like a better wall, or I woke up this morning and still can't believe this world, or never give up. From November to December, this existed. And Chavez said, "It's important in these times of division, fear, and stress to understand that in the end, we are all on the same team." And it was cool. A selection of the notes were saved by the New York Historical Society. This one we've probably all seen. In 2017, Ferry produced a series of protest posters titled "We the People," depicting Latina, Muslim, and African American women in the same style as Obama's Hope poster. His creations were printed in newspapers, distributed at Trump's inauguration. And about his work, Ferry said, "We felt the phrase 'we the people' is pretty important. It means everyone." Thirdly, some say that the Women's March was seen as the largest work of political performance art ever. I don't know if any of you were part of it, but it definitely felt like that. The abundance of protest signs makes some of the best in activism history, expressing humor, sarcasm, rage, and honesty. It was really hard to pick which ones I was going to put up because there were so many cool ones. The Smithsonian National Museum, Bishopsgate Institute in London, and Temple University all collected signs for display. And then lastly, JR's Kikito, that's the baby's name, went up just a matter of days after Trump's decision to repeal DACA, which offers legal protection to some who entered the US illegally as minors, often with their parents. It also kind of seems to make light of his order to build the wall. The work makes the wall look flimsy and surmountable by a baby. And my favorite part is that the people in this town in Mexico actually were the main ones helping him put it up. They were very, very excited about it. So I set out to make art that would express what I was feeling inside and what I knew a lot of people around me were feeling after conversations. Just like how I started embroidery for the first time, I just kind of sat down at my desk and decided I'm going to make something. I don't know what it is. Of course, this is a really, really tough thing to address because it felt like the country was divided and even my immediate family was very, very divided. So it felt really, really deep and kind of heartbreaking. But to get started, I asked myself 3 questions. What am I feeling? What do I care about? And this is with no concern for what others might think, what might sell, or what is cool, just honesty with myself. The second is, if these feelings were visible, what would they look like? And lastly, how do I get these visual feelings on paper? So what am I feeling? I covered that a little bit, but just a struggle to define who I was as a woman in the world. I used to think my voice mattered, I was capable of anything, my body belonged to me, but now I just felt really confused about all of that. If these feelings were visible, what would they look like? A jumbled mess, kind of broken, fractured. I actually talked to a few women in here and they felt similarly, like right in here. So I was writing all those words down at my desk. The edges felt like they needed to be sharp, maybe glass or ceramic, but I didn't know what. And then how do I get these feelings on paper? I think they had to be visuals of women and they needed to be fractured. I didn't want to see their eyes. I wanted there to be some inward reflection. So the first one I made felt like me, except blonde. But I knew it couldn't just be of me. I knew I needed to include other women. So I included my best friend, a woman who had been adopted by a mother, from a mother with mental illness and had grown up to be a social worker, helping others in her exact same situation. And I saw her as just strong and powerful and beautiful. And then I went on to include women I saw in the march, carrying babies, signs, looking tired and frustrated but determined. And then I continued on until I had an army, just of women feeling fractured but portraying civility and strength. This was actually in this space a few years ago, maybe a year ago. A few months went by and the Me Too movement began. And I had another gallery showing scheduled, but I wanted a whole new series based on this new movement. I knew this was a subject I wanted to tackle, but delicately. So every day a new Me Too post would pop up in my feed, and some were quiet, some were loud, some were all about support of others, some were introspective and therapeutic. So I asked myself the same 3 questions. Be honest, what am I feeling? If these feelings were visible, what would they look like? And how do I get these visual feelings on paper? So I started doing these like massive 22-inch hand projects. The first one I would say is like the powerful woman. The second would be like the quiet, gentle woman. And the third, a couple in support of each other. This one I would say is like two women in understanding. And a woman owning her identity. And both of these series have helped me in so many ways. Actually, sitting down to try to get those feelings out was the most therapeutic, amazing thing. Just watching it like come out of my fingertips and hold in front of me, and then I can walk away and almost like release those feelings for a bit. These works showed in a few different venues, featured in a few blogs and magazines, which started some really incredible conversations. Women felt like I knew where they were coming from and they could have those conversations with me. And a lot of men had really good questions about them, asked what they could do to help change things. And lastly, this work made me realize what honesty can do in my artwork and my business. These were the first in years that felt like they came from me, my thoughts, my feelings, even my color scheme. And after working for a while to just make artwork that pleased others, my work and my business felt really dead. But going in and being honest with myself, I felt like it really came to life. So if you're a maker here, I want to encourage you to ask those 3 questions. Like, what are you feeling? Like deep down, what are you feeling? And be honest with yourself about that. And if these feelings were visible, what would they look like? And how would you get those visible feelings on paper? Thank you.
Before you run away, Carrie,
No.
we got the Q&A portion. I'll kick it off with a question. So you talked a little bit about kind of the hurdle to get to the point where you're like actually able to be self-sufficient making, there's that, and then making stuff that like feels like you.
Yeah.
Now that you are doing both, what are some of the things that you do to make sure that you're protecting your time to do both of those things? I could definitely see it being easy to be like, I have an order, I'm going to prioritize that. Like, how are you navigating that now?
Yeah. I mean, every order that comes in, I plot on a calendar and I'll look at, okay, how much time does this actually leave me to make this? And how much free time does it leave in my life? But it's tough because you want to take every single order that comes in and say yes just to get the money coming in, you know. I've occasionally had to just postpone something that I really know I should be working on just to make, because if I don't have that time to make, I won't be good at anything I'm trying to do in my life. So, yeah, it's tough. It's a balance.
For sure. Questions from the room? Got a couple minutes here.
Yes.
Have you ever had clients request something that you just strongly disagree with, and how do you like respond to that?
Not really. I've had them request really ugly things, and I'll still make it, and I just won't like promote it or anything. There's actually a lot of those, and I've had to make things that I know some other people might not agree with, but yeah, I don't really care.
I love that show. I love Celebrity. And things. Could you just talk about a little bit like just when those things happen, like being found by a producer or
Yeah. So
extra prep?
super. Let me see. Like I said, I was posting like a few of pieces of my work in actual spaces and just tagging like interior design, interior decor, like everything interior. And I wasn't aiming for Joanna Gaines. It just was awesome that it worked out. But her producer found it and made one for her, and she liked it. And I also included like a little gift of one of her goats in there. And she liked it and sent me like a little thank you letter and just said like, hey, can I put this in my first issue of my magazine? It's like, hell yeah. Yeah, so it was a cool little treat, and it led to a lot of exposure. Unfortunately, like as that exposure came in, I was headed out to a 3-month trip to Europe. So I actually had shut down my shop, but I made a website and I took a lot of back orders and it still worked out. Yeah. Yeah.
So kind of going off that, like you taking vacation, so how do you kind of manage that, like being a maker, like finding that time for yourself to stop being a maker and kind of like.
Oh, I prioritize vacation. Yeah. Like as I'm getting the orders in, I'll plot them out and I'll just be like, this week, I'm not going to take anything over this week. And I'll just work my ass off like the week before and the week after to like make sure I can do that. Yeah. Work weekends if I have to. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Since like stitching is becoming so like it's like a renaissance right now, do you find yourself with any like new competition?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah. When I started, there were like 2 main people, like Sarah K. Benning, I can't remember the other one, but beautiful, beautiful work. And then it was like me. And I actually went on the vacation, and when I came back, it had just exploded. And every day, it's cool. My friends will send me like, look at this, I saw this, it reminded me of you. And I'm like, I know, they're my competition. But thank you. So it's now I feel like it's a struggle of just, I want to make something that's completely from me and completely different, that no one has seen before. Like that's the main goal. Yes.
Do you still create commissioned work now that you've dabbled into more fine art with
Yeah,
embroidery?
yeah. I think the majority is still commission.
Yeah.
But I've learned to say no to create space for my own stuff. Yeah, and take the things that seem the most exciting and yeah. Yeah.
How do you balance actually running, you know, the logistics of running your business
Mhm.
and then your creative time?
Mhm.
You know, 'cause I'm sure that, you know, like how much time is spent doing the work and how much time is spent
Yeah.
doing the stuff to make it look happen.
Right. It's really hard. I do just make sure like I'm going to sit down from 9 to 5 and even if I don't have a big deadline tomorrow, I'm just going to sit down and work. So I don't know. I'm still figuring that out. If you figure it out, let me know. Yeah.
I have time for one more right there.
Do you dabble in any kind of other like fiber arts, like knitting or crochet or anything like that?
I have tried them. I'm not great, but I have started going into like not everything is embroidery anymore. I don't know if you saw as it was scrolling through, there were like some floral, and I would actually just take fabric that I really liked and like cut out pieces that I loved and collage that and then like just involve embroidery in some way. But yeah, I'm trying to try some other things out. I sewed like banners for a while, so I like trying to dabble in sewing. But yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Carrie.
Thank you.